Michael writes, "Loved your video on value Shimano road builds. Can you do one for SRAM mountain 1x groups?" SRAM's 1x11 group sets have revolutionized mountain bike drivetrains, and we've only just begun to see what's possible with frame designs built around the 1x setup. All of SRAM's 1x groups work great, but some components offer better value than others. For the highly visible and vulnerable rear derailleur in this group, X1 is my value pick. It is only 6 grams heavier than X01 and still features steel ball bearing equipped pulleys and all of the precision of the X01 and XX1 derailleurs for a fraction of the cost, and it looks good too. Plus, you won't shed as many tears when it gets destroyed in a crash. 1x11 cranksets are essentially the same as any other crankset, just with one chainring. So my budget pick here is to go with the crankset you have and just upgrade the chainring. There are a ton of narrow-wide chain rings out there these days, but SRAM X-Synch rings really do the best job of chain retention. Chromag makes some great 1x rings that license the patent SRAM X-Synch tooth design, and they run cheaper than the SRAM chain rings, so they're a great option too. If you don't have an old crank to use, SRAM's X01 carbon crankset is outstanding and relatively affordable. It is the same as the XX1 crankset, but has a heavier spider and a lower price. So I recommend going with this crankset and opting for a direct mount chainring to get you a setup that is lighter than XX1 for less money. If you're on a tight budget though, the Alloy X1 crank is the way to go. Shifters are an area where you don't want to skimp, but when it comes to SRAM 1x groups, the X01 shifter is my favorite regardless of price. It has the most positive shift feel of the three, is sealed better than X1, and has the adjustable position cable uptake lever that XX1 has, but with a more affordable alloy lever. You won't save any weight going with an X01 shifter over the X1, but the crisper shifting and better sealing alone are worth the extra cost in my opinion. All of SRAM's XG11 speed mountain cassettes are impressive with their huge range and light weight, but the X01 XG1195 cassette is the best value of the three. In addition to the sexy black finish, the X01 cassette is actually just a few grams lighter than the XX1 cassette, costs less, and features essentially the same construction with 10 cogs machined from one piece of steel billet and an alloy 42-tooth cog. The X1 XG1180 cassette is a little cheaper, but it is also 47 grams heavier, and the cogs aren't quite as stiff or crisp shifting as the ones on the X01 cassette. SRAM's 11-speed mountain chains are limited to just two models, the PC-XX1 and the PC-X1. The XX1 chain has more stainless parts for smoother shifting and longer life, so I think it's worth the added cost compared to the X1 chain. To sum it up, here are my top picks for the best value SRAM 1x11 group sets. Rear derailleur, X1. Shifter, X01. Crankset. Upgrade your old crankset with a Chromag X-Synch ring, or if you need a crankset, go with an X01 crankset with a direct mount ring or complete X1 crankset depending on budget. Cassette, X01. Chain, XX1. If you want your question asked on Ask a Mechanic presented by Cyclery, send your inquiry to webletters@competitorgroup.com.